Hello, my dear friend. I'm Alex, your unfiltered storyteller, where emotions are real and every tale touches the soul. Before we begin, I invite you to like, comment, share this video with someone special, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a story that could change the way you see life. Stay until the very end, because this story is going to surprise you. Thank you for watching this video, and a heartfelt thanks to the channel members appearing on the screen. Your support makes all of this possible. I wish you a beautiful day, and may God bless you and your family. Let's begin. The rain was slamming violently against the windows of the modest clinic when Dr. Chloe Hayes received the call that would change her life forever. She was a young woman of extraordinary beauty, with wavy brown hair framing a face of perfect features and emerald green eyes that radiated compassion. Her impeccable white coat contrasted sharply with the humble, inner-city neighborhood where she had chosen to practice medicine. Dr. Hayes, we need you to go to Mrs. Vivian Rodriguez's house urgently, the nurse reported, her voice laced with worry. She lives in the Eastside and is very ill. She can't get out of bed. Chloe didn't hesitate for a second. Despite studying at the best universities and medical schools and having offers from luxury private practices in Manhattan, she had chosen to dedicate her life to serving those most in need in her city, New York. It was a decision that filled her with purpose, even if it meant sleepless nights and a modest salary. She grabbed her medical bag, put on her coat, and headed out into the storm. The drive toward the east side was treacherous. The streets had turned into small rivers, and her car struggled to push through the pooling water. As she drove, Chloe couldn't stop thinking about her own history. She had been adopted as a baby, raised by a loving family who had given her everything she needed to become the exceptional woman she was now. Yet, a void had always lingered in her heart, a question that had haunted her since childhood. Who was her birth mother, and why had she given her up for adoption? Her adoptive parents had been honest with her, but the orphanage's records were scarce, offering few clues to her origin. Upon reaching the east side, Chloe was struck by the conditions. The houses were small, simple constructions of brick and siding, some with peeling paint. Mud puddles stretched across the unpaved alleyways, and the few working street lights cast circles of sickly yellow light that barely pierced the darkness of the rainy night. Following the directions, she arrived at a particularly humble house. The wooden door was weathered, its paint flaking. Chloe took a deep breath before knocking. It was always difficult to enter homes ravaged by poverty, not out of judgment, but because seeing such hardship broke her heart. An older woman with a tired but beautiful face opened the door. Despite the years and the struggle, it was clear she had once been stunning. Her eyes, the exact same shade of green as Chloe's, showed a mix of gratitude and shame. "Are you the doctor? Thank you so much for coming in this weather. My mother is very ill," the woman said, inviting Chloe in. Inside, Chloe found a home that, while extremely modest, was filled with love and care. Everything was clean and organized. The walls, though in need of paint, held small handmade decorations that gave the place warmth. In a corner, a small table held family photos, and from the back, she could hear the patient's persistent cough. "My name is David," said a tall, strong-built man of about 5 with defined features and a kind gaze emerging from the kitchen. "I'm Mrs. Rodriguez's son. I was working construction, but now I'm dedicated to caring for her." Chloe immediately noted the devotion in David's voice. It was clear this family, despite their material struggles, was bound by deep love. "Please take me to the patient," Chloe replied in her soft yet professional voice. David led her to the main bedroom, tiny but cozy. On a simple bed, covered with a clearly handmade patchwork quilt, lay an elderly woman of serene beauty. Her snow-white hair was carefully combed. Though her face showed the lines of time and suffering, she retained a dignity that impressed Chloe. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm Dr. Hayes. I'm here to examine you," she said, approaching the bed gently. The elderly woman slowly opened her eyes. They were the color of jade, the same emerald green as Chloe's. A coincidence the doctor noticed, but attributed to chance. When Vivian saw Chloe, her expression completely changed. A mix of shock and recognition crossed her wrinkled face. "My daughter," the old woman murmured, her voice weak but charged with emotion. "You're just as beautiful as I always dreamed you'd be." Chloe smiled, thinking the fever had confused the woman. It was common for patients in a delicate state to mistake doctors for relatives. She began her routine exam, taking vital signs and listening to Vivian's lungs. The diagnosis was clear: advanced pneumonia. The elderly woman needed immediate treatment, but Chloe knew the family probably couldn't afford expensive medications or a hospital stay. She needs strong antibiotics and constant care, Chloe explained to David and the other woman, who turned out to be Vivian's daughter-in-law, Maria. I'm going to prescribe the treatment, and I'll arrange for the medication. David looked at her with surprise and gratitude. Doctor, we can't pay. Don't worry about that now, Chloe interrupted. The important thing is for your mother to recover. While writing the prescriptions, Chloe looked more closely at the room. The walls were decorated with family photographs from different eras. In one corner, something powerfully caught her attention: a gold frame that looked out of place in the humble setting. Her curiosity led her to approach. What she saw left her completely paralyzed. Inside the frame, carefully preserved behind glass, was a birth certificate. Her eyes scanned the document, and her heart stopped when she read the name: Chloe Soleil Herrera. Her own name, her own original birth certificate. Her hands trembled as she held the frame. The certificate listed the exact date of her birth, the hospital where she was born, and in the space designated for the mother's name, it clearly stated Vivian Herrera. It can't be, she whispered to herself, feeling as though the world had stopped. David approached, noticing her expression of shock. Are you all right, doctor? Chloe turned toward the bed where Vivian lay. The old woman watched her, tears streaming down her cheeks, a smile full of love and pain on her face. I knew you would come back to me someday, Vivian murmured, her voice broken. Every night, I prayed to see you once more before leaving this world. The reality hit Chloe like an avalanche. This sick woman living in abject poverty was her biological mother, the woman who had brought her into the world, who had signed the adoption papers, who had kept her birth certificate as her most precious treasure all these years. Why was all Chloe managed to articulate, her eyes filling with tears? Why did you give me up? Vivian reached a trembling hand toward her. Chloe, moved by an impulse she couldn't control, approached and took that fragile hand in hers. Because I loved you more than my own life, Vivian replied, her voice cracking. I was so young, with no money, no education. Your father had abandoned us when he found out I was pregnant. I was living on the streets, sometimes without a thing to eat. I couldn't give you the life you deserved. David watched the scene, not fully understanding, but feeling the intense emotion. When I took you to the orphanage, Vivian continued, I begged them to give you to a family that could educate you, that would love you, that would give you everything I couldn't offer. I kept your certificate because it was the only thing I had of you. It was my way of remembering that I was once the mother of the most beautiful angel in the world. Chloe felt her heart breaking and mending at the same time. All her life, she had imagined different scenarios about why she was given up for adoption. Some resentful, others sad, but she had never considered this truth, that she was given up out of love, not abandonment. When David was born later on, Vivian added, I couldn't raise him alone either, but by then I was older, stronger. I made many mistakes with him, but we managed together. I always told him about his older sister, the beautiful doctor he would meet someday. Sister? Chloe asked, turning to David with incredulous eyes. David smiled through his tears. Mom always told me I had a sister who was a doctor, who helped people. I thought they were just stories to comfort me when we were poor. I never imagined it was real. The room filled with an emotional silence, interrupted only by the rain hitting the roof. Chloe looked alternately at Vivian and David, processing that she had found not only her birth mother, but also a brother she never knew existed. My adoptive family gave me everything, Chloe said finally. They loved me, they educated me, they supported me to become a doctor. I have a beautiful life thanks to your decision. Vivian closed her eyes with a look of peace she hadn't had in years. I hope you're enjoying this video. I'm a little curious and would love to know where you're watching this video from and what time it is where you are right now. Thank you for watching this story. I did the right thing. All the pain was worth it if you could be happy. But now you're sick and alone, Chloe countered, squeezing her mother's hand tighter. And I'm a doctor. Let me take care of you now. What followed was one of the most emotional conversations of Chloe's life. Vivian told her about the years after giving her up, how she had struggled, and the guilt she had carried. David shared stories of his childhood, how his mother worked any job to support them, and how she always spoke of her doctor's sister with pride and hope. Chloe, for her part, told them about her life, her adoptive parents, her medical career, and why she chose to work with the neediest. Every word brought her closer to understanding that her vocation for service might have been inherited from this brave woman who sacrificed everything for love. "I have to go now," Chloe said finally, noting that Vivian needed rest. "But I'll be back early tomorrow with the medicine, and every day until you're completely well." "You don't have to do that," Vivian responded weakly. "You've done enough by just coming." "Yes, I have to," Chloe insisted with determination. "Because now I know that I'm not just your doctor. I'm your daughter and David is my brother. We are family." Leaving the house, Chloe walked through the rain to her car with a completely transformed heart. In a single night, she had discovered not only her origin, but also the true meaning of maternal love and sacrifice. Vivian had given up the happiness of raising her daughter to give her a better chance in life. As she drove back, Chloe knew her life would never be the same. She had a mother to care for, a brother to know, and a family that had been waiting for her, unknowingly all these years. But she also knew the questions were just beginning. How would her adoptive parents react? What would this mean for her career and her future? Could she truly integrate these two families into her life? What she didn't realize was that the secrets she had discovered that night were only the tip of the iceberg, of a much more complex story that would involve difficult choices, unexpected sacrifices, and the true test of what unconditional love means. Chloe couldn't sleep all night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Vivian's face. She heard her broken voice explaining why she had given her up. Her apartment, which had always seemed cozy, now felt strangely empty. She got up several times to look out the window, as if expecting reality to have changed with the first light of dawn. First thing in the morning, she called the city's largest pharmacy. Thanks to her good relationships with medical suppliers, she managed to get in all the necessary antibiotics for Vivian's treatment at no cost. She explained it was for a low-income patient, something she did frequently, though this time the words, "my mother," almost slipped out. Before heading back to the Eastside, Chloe made a decision she knew she couldn't postpone. She called her adoptive parents, Evelyn and Richard Miller. "Dad, I need to talk to you and Mom urgently," she said over the phone, her voice slightly trembling. "Of course, my love," Richard replied with the warmth that always characterized their relationship. "Is everything okay? You sound worried." "I'm fine, but I need to tell you something important. Can you come to my apartment this afternoon?" Evelyn, who had picked up the extension, intervened with her maternal tone. "Absolutely, honey. We'll be there after lunch." Chloe hung up the phone with a knot in her stomach. Evelyn and Richard had been extraordinary parents. They had loved her unconditionally, sacrificed much to give her the best education possible, and celebrated every one of her achievements. The idea that they might feel threatened or hurt by her discovery deeply distressed her. She decided to go see Vivian first before the conversation with her adoptive parents. She needed to be sure her biological mother was stable and starting her recovery. The morning trip to the Eastside felt completely different. Now she knew every street, every corner held a new meaning. It wasn't just the way to another patient, it was the path to her newly discovered family. When she arrived at the little house, David opened the door. His face lit up when he saw her, and Chloe noticed for the first time how much they resembled each other. The same jawline, the same way of smiling. Chloe," David corrected himself with a shy smile. "Mom has been asking for you since early this morning. I don't think she slept much." "How's her breathing? Has she had a fever?" Chloe asked, switching into professional medical mode, though her heart was pounding for reasons beyond medicine. "A little better, I think, but she's very weak." Chloe entered the room where Vivian was waiting, awake. Seeing her, the old woman's eyes welled up with tears. "I thought it was a beautiful dream," Vivian murmured. "That my doctor daughter had come to care for me was too good to be true." Chloe approached and gently took her mother's hand. "It wasn't a dream, Mom." The word came naturally to her lips, and both women were moved to hear it. She began the medical examination, but this time it was different. Every touch, Every procedure was loaded with a love that went beyond professional duty. Vivian's lungs sounded slightly better, though there was still a long way to go. I brought all the medicine, Chloe told her as she organized the bottles. This treatment will take a few weeks, but she's going to get completely better. Daughter, Vivian interrupted, her voice weak but determined. I need to tell you the whole truth. Not just why I gave you up. There are more things you must know. David, who had been listening from the doorway, came closer. Mom, maybe you should rest first. No, son, I've waited too long. Vivian looked directly at Chloe. When I gave you up for adoption, I made sure you went to the best possible family. It wasn't a random decision. Chloe frowned, intrigued. What do you mean? Richard Miller, your adoptive father, was a prominent doctor at the hospital where you were born. I worked there as a cleaning lady during my pregnancy. I saw him every day, how he treated patients, how his wife, Evelyn, came to visit him and was kind to everyone. They were young and had just gotten married, but I knew they would be wonderful parents. Chloe's heart accelerated. You knew my adoptive parents before giving me up? I watched them for months, Vivian continued with a nostalgic smile. I overheard Evelyn telling other nurses that they were trying to have children, but couldn't. I saw how Richard was gentle even with the humblest cleaning staff. I knew that if my baby went with them, she would have not only love, but also the chance to study medicine, just like I always dreamed. Chloe felt as if all the pieces of a complex puzzle were finally fitting together. That's why you specifically asked for me to be given to them? I told the hospital social worker that I wanted my baby to go with Dr. Miller and his wife. It was the only condition I set. Tears ran freely down Vivian's face. I knew Richard would teach you to love medicine as he loved it, and that Evelyn would give you all the maternal affection I couldn't give you. David looked at his mother with a mix of admiration and sadness. You never told me those details, Mom. Because it hurt too much to remember, Vivian admitted. But now that Chloe is here, she needs to know that it was an act of planned love, not desperate abandonment. Chloe sat on the bed holding both of Vivian's hands. Does Dad Richard know that you chose me specifically for them? I don't know. Adoption procedures were different back then. Maybe yes, maybe no. But what I do know is that they fulfilled every one of my hopes for you. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Maria, Vivian's daughter-in-law. She was a beautiful middle-aged woman with black hair pulled back and kind eyes that reflected the same family warmth. Excuse the interruption, Maria said shyly. I brought some homemade chicken soup for Mrs. Rodriguez. She stopped when she saw Chloe. You must be the doctor. David told me about the family. Maria had been like a daughter to Vivian all these years. She and David had married young and together had cared for the elderly woman through hard times. Maria is an angel, Vivian explained to Chloe. When David and she got married, they didn't have much, but they always shared everything with me. She's the daughter I never had the chance to raise. Chloe saw the worry in Maria's eyes and understood immediately. This woman feared that the arrival of the biological daughter might change the family dynamic she cherished. Maria, Chloe said softly, it's a pleasure to meet you. Mom is lucky to have such a dedicated daughter-in-law. Maria's face relaxed visibly upon hearing Chloe's genuine tone. Mrs. Rodriguez has been like my own mother. My parents died when I was very young, and she took me in as family. Then we're sisters, Chloe replied with a warm smile. Because anyone who loves my mom the way you do is family to me too. The tension in the room completely dissolved. Maria smiled through her tears, and David came closer to hug both his wife and his newly found sister. After making sure Vivian took her medicine and ate some of Maria's soup, Chloe prepared to leave. She had to go back for the conversation with Evelyn and Richard. I'll be back early tomorrow, she promised, kissing Vivian's forehead. Chloe, her birth mother called out as she headed for the door. What are you going to tell your adoptive parents? Chloe stopped, considering the question. The truth? That I found my biological family, but that doesn't change the love I feel for them. That you gave me life, but they gave me the possibility to live it fully. Back at her apartment, Chloe showered and changed, but couldn't calm down. When Evelyn and Richard arrived that afternoon, they wore their usual expressions of parental love, mixed with concern over the urgency of the call. Evelyn, a beautiful woman with silver hair and a sweet smile, immediately hugged Chloe. My love, you look tired. Have you been sleeping well? Richard, distinguished and elegant despite his age, observed his adopted daughter with the analytical gaze he had developed as a doctor. There's something different about you, Chloe. Tell us what's happening. Chloe invited them to sit in the living room. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured coffee. Last night I went to attend to an emergency patient, she began, carefully choosing her words. An elderly woman with pneumonia in the Eastside. Always so dedicated, Evelyn commented with pride. That's what we admire most about you. In the patient's house, Chloe continued, taking a deep breath, I found something unexpected. She paused, seeking strength. I found my original birth certificate. Evelyn and Richard exchanged a quick look. Richard straightened in his chair. Your birth certificate? Evelyn asked, her voice barely a whisper. The patient is my biological mother. Her name is Vivian Herrera. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with complex emotions. Evelyn brought a hand to her chest, and Richard leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Chloe, Richard said finally, his voice laden with an emotion Chloe couldn't identify. There's something we also need to tell you. What do you mean? Chloe asked, feeling her world about to tilt once more. Evelyn took her husband's hand for support. We did know who your biological mother was. Chloe felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. What? Vivian Herrera worked at the hospital where I was a resident physician, Richard explained, the words coming out slowly. She specifically asked us to be the ones to adopt you. But you never told me. Because we wanted to protect you, Evelyn interrupted, tears running down her cheeks. Vivian asked us not to seek contact with her to raise you as if you were completely ours. She said it would be easier for everyone, especially you. Richard got up and walked toward the window. We respected her decision because we saw how much it hurt her to give you up. But we always knew that someday you might want to look for her. All these years, Evelyn added, every time you asked about your biological mother, we wanted to tell you the truth, but we had promised to respect her wishes. Chloe felt overwhelmed. Do you know where she lives? How is she? We lost touch with her shortly after the adoption, Richard admitted. But we always hoped she was well, that she had found happiness. She's sick, Chloe said, the words coming out in a whisper. Very sick and very poor. She's been struggling alone all these years. Evelyn immediately rose and hugged Chloe. Then we have to help her. She's our daughter's mother. Richard turned from the window, his face resolute. What does she need? Medicine? Hospitalization? Her adoptive parents' reaction completely surprised Chloe. There was no jealousy, no perceived threat, only genuine love and concern for the woman who had made it possible for them to be parents. I already got the medicine, Chloe explained, but she lives in very humble conditions. She and my brother, David. You have a brother? Evelyn asked, her eyes shining with maternal curiosity. Yes, he's younger than me, a good man who has cared for Mom, Vivian, all these years. Richard returned to sit beside them. Chloe, we want you to know something very important. You will always be our daughter, no matter what other families you find. But we also understand that you have the right to know and love your biological family. In fact, Evelyn added with a smile through her tears, we would like to meet Vivian. After so many years, we want to personally thank her for the most beautiful gift she could have given us. Chloe broke down emotionally. She had feared her adoptive parents would feel betrayed or threatened, but instead they were being more loving and generous than she had ever imagined. Do you really want to meet her? She asked through her tears. Of course, Richard replied without hesitation. If you're comfortable with it, we'd like to accompany you tomorrow as a family. And maybe we can help with the medical expenses, Evelyn added. We want to make sure she has the best possible care. That night, Chloe fell asleep with a sense of completeness she had never experienced. Not only had she found her biological family, but she had discovered that true love doesn't divide, it multiplies. Her adoptive parents didn't see Vivian as a threat, but as an integral part of the story that had made their family possible. The next day, Evelyn, Richard, and Chloe made the trip to the Eastside together. Evelyn had prepared a basket with homemade food, and Richard had brought his medical bag to offer a second opinion on Vivian's treatment. When they arrived at the little house, David opened the door and was surprised to see 3 people instead of 1. David, Chloe said, I'd like to introduce you to my parents, Evelyn and Richard Miller. David invited them in, obviously nervous about receiving people who clearly came from a very different socioeconomic level, but Evelyn immediately put him at ease with her natural warmth. David, Chloe has told us so much about you. It's a pleasure to meet our daughter's brother. When they entered the room where Vivian was, the elderly woman couldn't hold back her tears upon seeing Evelyn and Richard. Miller, Mrs. Miller, she murmured, her voice broken. You don't know how much I've wished for this moment. Evelyn immediately approached the bed and took Vivian's hands. We are the ones who owe you everything, Vivian. Thank you for trusting us with the greatest treasure in the world. Richard professionally examined Vivian, confirming that Chloe's treatment was excellent and that her recovery was on track. Vivian, Richard said when the exam was finished, we want to propose something to you. We have a large house with extra rooms. Would you like to come and stay with us while you fully recover? Vivian looked alternately at Richard, Evelyn, David, and Chloe. I can't accept such generosity. It's not generosity, Evelyn insisted. It's family caring for family. David intervened. Mom, I could help with the yard work and maintenance to compensate. And Maria could help with the cooking, Chloe added. We could all be useful. And so, a week later, Vivian temporarily moved into Evelyn and Richard's house. The large house that had once housed only an elderly couple was now filled with life as 3 generations lived together under the same roof. David found a job at a construction company recommended by Richard, and Maria began helping Evelyn with household tasks, more as company than as an employee. Family dinners became events full of stories, laughter, and mutual discovery. Vivian told Evelyn about Chloe's personality as a baby, and Evelyn shared anecdotes about Chloe's childhood and adolescence. But the most beautiful thing was seeing how Vivian flourished in this environment of love and security. Her health improved remarkably, not just because of the medicine, but because of the happiness of being surrounded by family. However, Chloe knew that this idyllic situation would soon face its greatest test. Vivian was getting better and would eventually have to make decisions about her future. Would she return to her humble home? Would she stay permanently? How would Chloe balance her responsibilities to both families? Moreover, there was something in Vivian's gaze that suggested she still held secrets, something about the past she hadn't yet revealed, something Chloe sensed would be crucial to fully understanding her family's story. The answer would come soon, in a way no one had anticipated. Several weeks had passed since Vivian moved into Evelyn and Richard's house. The elderly woman had fully recovered her health, and the family had found a beautiful, harmonious routine. However, Chloe noticed that her biological mother seemed restless, as if something was tormenting her. One afternoon, while Evelyn and Maria were preparing dinner and Richard was helping David with some projects in the garden, Chloe found Vivian sitting alone on the porch, looking out at the horizon with a melancholic expression. What's troubling you, Mom? Chloe asked, sitting beside her. Vivian sighed deeply before responding. Daughter, there's something else I need to tell you, something I've held on to all these years, and it might change how you see me. Chloe felt a familiar knot in her stomach. Whatever it is, it won't change my love for you. Your biological father, Vivian began, her voice trembling. He didn't abandon us, as I told you. Chloe frowned, confused. What do you mean? His name was Robert Carter. He was a handsome, intelligent man from a well-to-do family. We were in love, or at least I believed he loved me. Vivian paused, her eyes filling with tears. When I told him I was pregnant, he was excited. He wanted to marry me. Then why didn't you? Because his family vehemently opposed it. Robert came from a family with a lot of money and social standing. His parents threatened to disinherit him if he married a cleaning lady. Vivian wiped her tears with a tissue. Robert fought for us for months. He confronted his family. He lost his job at the family company. He even moved into a small apartment to be with me. Chloe listened intently, her heart beating faster and faster. But then something terrible happened, Vivian continued. Robert had a car accident while he was on his way to accompany me to a doctor's appointment. A drunk driver hit him head on. Her voice completely broke. He died 3 days later in the hospital without ever getting to meet you. Tears ran freely down Chloe's face. Why didn't you tell me the truth? Because I thought it would be easier for you to think you had a father who abandoned you. than to know you had a father who loved you so much he died trying to get to you. Vivian took Chloe's hands. Robert left a letter for you that he wrote in the hospital before he died. I've been waiting for the right moment to give it to you. Vivian stood up and went to her room, returning with a yellowed, worn envelope. With trembling hands, she gave it to Chloe. She had written it when the doctors told her she wouldn't survive. It's for you. Chloe opened the envelope with extreme care. Inside was a letter written in shaky handwriting, clearly from someone who was very ill. To my beautiful daughter, whom I will never be able to hold. If you are reading this, it means I could not keep my promise to care for and protect you all your life. I want you to know that from the moment I knew of your existence, you were the most important thing in the world to me. Your mother, Vivian, is the bravest, most loving woman I have ever known, and I know she will make the best decisions for your future. If anything happens to me, I want you to know that you have a family who loves you. My parents, your grandparents, made a mistake in opposing our love, but deep down they are good people. Someday, I hope they can meet you and love you as I love you. I have left instructions in my will to establish an educational fund for you if anything happens to me. I want you to study, to be everything you wish to be, to have the opportunities I couldn't personally give you. Forgive me for not being there to watch you grow, to comfort you when you cry, to celebrate your achievements, but I carry your image in my heart until my last breath. I love you infinitely. Your dad, Robert. Chloe couldn't stop crying. An educational fund? Yes, Vivian replied with a sad smile. Robert's parents fulfilled his last wish. They established a fund that paid for your college and medical school. Richard and Evelyn never knew where that money came from. They were told it was an anonymous scholarship. Chloe was speechless. All this time, she had thought her adoptive parents had made great financial sacrifices to pay for her studies, without knowing that her biological father had found a way to care for her from beyond the grave. There's more, Vivian continued. Robert's parents, your grandparents, are still alive. They've been sending money all these years, not just for your education, but also so I could live with dignity. I always refused their money because I felt guilty, as if I had caused their son's death. They're alive? Where do they live? Here in the city. They are Antonio and Mercedes Carter. They own a major company, but since Robert's death, they've dedicated a lot to charity. Vivian paused. I think they've been waiting all your life for the opportunity to meet you. That night, Chloe told everything to Evelyn, Richard, David, and Maria. The family's reaction was one of astonishment and understanding. Richard vaguely remembered hearing about the anonymous educational fund, but had never questioned its origin. This means you have grandparents who have been indirectly looking after you all your life, Evelyn observed wisely. A family even bigger than you imagined. After several days of reflection, Chloe decided she wanted to meet her paternal grandparents. With the support of her entire family, Vivian contacted Antonio and Mercedes Carter. The phone call was emotional. Mercedes cried upon hearing that Robert's daughter wanted to meet them. And Antonio, his voice broken with emotion, invited the entire family to dinner at their house the following weekend. The Carter house was imposing, an elegant mansion surrounded by perfectly manicured gardens. When Chloe arrived, accompanied by her entire extended family, she was greeted by a beautiful, elegant, elderly couple whose eyes welled up with tears upon seeing her. Mercedes, a distinguished woman with silver hair and an aristocratic bearing, immediately hugged Chloe. You are identical to Robert when he was your age. The same eyes, the same smile. Antonio, an imposing man, but with a gentle gaze, approached shyly. Daughter, we have waited for this moment all your life. Forgive us for the mistakes we made in the past. The dinner was one revelation after another. The Carters told them how the pain of losing Robert had made them reflect on their prejudices and mistakes. They had dedicated their lives to philanthropy as a way to honor their son's memory. Every scholarship, every social project we fund, we do it thinking of Robert and of you, Mercedes explained. We wanted to be worthy of meeting you someday. Antonio addressed Vivian directly. Vivian, I know we can never compensate for the pain we caused you by opposing your relationship with Robert, but we want to ask for your forgiveness and thank you for raising such an extraordinary daughter. Vivian, with the dignity that had characterized her all her life, replied Antonio. Antonio, Mercedes, the pain has passed. The important thing is that Robert achieved his goal. Chloe had the opportunity to study and become the wonderful woman she is today. The Carters had another surprise. They had kept all of Robert's belongings, including photographs, letters, and personal objects. They showed Chloe family albums where she could see her father from childhood to young adulthood. "This is yours," Mercedes said, handing Chloe a beautifully carved wooden box. "These are all the things Robert kept in his room. We want you to have them." Inside the box, Chloe found photographs of Robert and Vivian together, love letters he had written to her mother, and a small ring that was clearly the engagement ring he was never able to give her. "Robert bought that ring a week before the accident," Antonio explained, his voice emotional. "He planned to formally propose to you the day he died." Vivian took the ring with trembling hands, tears running down her face. After so many years, she finally had tangible proof of the love Robert felt for her. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. Mercedes addressed the entire gathered family. "Antonio and I have no other children. Robert was our only heir." She paused, looking directly at Chloe. "We want you to know that everything we have, our company, our properties, it's all designated for you in our will." Chloe was speechless. "I can't accept that. You don't even know me." "We know you through all the good you've done," Antonio replied. "We know you are dedicated to helping the neediest, that you put your career at the service of others. That is exactly what Robert would have done. Besides," Mercedes added with a smile, "it's not just for you, it's for your entire family. Vivian deserves to live her final years in comfort and dignity. David deserves opportunities to prosper. Evelyn and Richard deserve to be compensated for the wonderful parents they have been." The following weeks were a time of adjustments and important decisions. The Carters insisted on buying a large house where the entire extended family could live comfortably. Not an ostentatious mansion, but a beautiful, functional home where 3 generations could coexist in harmony. Vivian finally agreed to live with dignity, understanding it was what Robert would have wanted for her. David was able to leave heavy construction and start studying engineering with the financial support of his new adoptive grandparents. Maria found her calling, helping Chloe at the free medical clinic, where she trained as a nurse. Evelyn and Richard, though initially reluctant to accept financial help, finally allowed the Carters to pay for a beautiful retirement home, where they could enjoy their golden years without economic worries. But the most beautiful thing of all was seeing how Vivian and the Carters developed a relationship of mutual respect and affection. Mercedes and Vivian became close friends, united by the shared love they felt for Robert and for Chloe. Antonio found the grandson he never had in David, teaching him about business and passing on the values he had hoped Robert would pass to his children. A year after the first encounter in the Eastside, the family was celebrating Vivian's birthday in the garden of their new home. 3 long tables had been joined to accommodate the entire extended family. Vivian was at the center, surrounded by Chloe, Evelyn, Richard, David, Maria, Antonio, Mercedes, and several close friends who had become part of the adoptive family. As she watched everyone laughing and sharing stories, Chloe reflected on the incredible journey that had begun with a simple emergency medical visit. She had started a search for a mother and had found an entire family. She had discovered that love doesn't divide, it multiplies infinitely. "What are you thinking about, my love?" Evelyn asked, noticing Chloe's contemplative expression. "I was thinking about how one rainy night changed my life forever," Chloe replied, smiling. "About how I found not only my biological family, but discovered I had a family even bigger than I ever dreamed." Richard raised his glass of wine. "I propose a toast to Robert, who orchestrated this beautiful reunion from heaven, to Vivian, who made the bravest and most loving decision of her life, to Antonio and Mercedes, who knew how to honor their son's memory, and to Chloe, who taught us that true love knows no bounds." "To the family," everyone responded in unison, raising their glasses. Vivian, with tears of happiness in her eyes, looked at Chloe. "Daughter, when I gave you up for adoption, I thought it was the most painful farewell of my life. I never imagined it would be the beginning of the most beautiful family love story I could have dreamed of." Chloe approached her biological mother and hugged her tightly. "Mom, your decision not only gave me a wonderful family, but in the end, it gave all of us an even bigger, more loving family." As the afternoon gave way to evening, and the garden lights created a magical ambiance. Chloe knew she had found something she didn't know she was looking for: completeness. She wasn't just the successful doctor, not just the grateful adopted daughter, not just the found biological daughter. She was all of that and more. She was the center of a family that had been united by fate, strengthened by love, and blessed by the understanding that true love always finds a way to triumph. The birth certificate she had found, framed in a humble house, had been the key that opened the doors to a life she never could have imagined. A life where the past, present, and future came together in perfect harmony. And on that perfect night, surrounded by all the love a person could need in a lifetime, Chloe understood that she had discovered the most beautiful truth of all: that true love knows no limits of time, distance, social class, or circumstance. It simply finds a way to bloom and multiply, creating miracles in the process. The story that had begun with tears of pain was now being written with tears of joy. The circle was complete, the family was reunited, and love had conquered every obstacle. Robert, wherever he was, could finally rest in peace, knowing that his last wish had been fulfilled. His daughter had found not only a family, but all the love he had dreamed of giving her in life. I hope you like the story. Today I have some news. If you enjoy my narrations, I'm sure you'll also love my new channel, Prayers with Alex. Come join me in praising God with faith-filled prayers every morning and every night. The link is right here in the card and also in the pinned comment. I look forward to seeing you there. I would also love to know what you thought of this story. Tell me in the comments, and now another exciting video is appearing on your screen that will surely surprise you. Tap to keep being moved by stories that touch the soul. I'll see you there, and remember to subscribe to Crossroads of Fate to keep receiving stories that change your perspective on life.